But yeah, if you suddenly we find that Fravors right, or that there's there's this contact. Oh, well, suddenly, guess what? That's it. That's the top concern at that point.
That's number one.
Right.
Yeah.
So.
I mean, the hope is always that if we're about to nuke ourselves into another dimension, that the aliens will come down and go, "Hey, dummies."
Just like a 1950s movie.
Yeah. Like, hey, you fucking idiots. Stop doing that.
The Day the Earth Stood Still.
Yeah,
Wasn't that one of them? Yeah.
Yeah. Klaatu Barada Niktu.
Wow.
Remember that?
Look at you.
Yeah.
That's pretty impressive, actually.
Day the Earth Stood Still is a great fucking movie.
It was a great movie.
It's weird. It's like a time capsule, right? Because what they thought it would look like, and the robot. That's just
no, it is. It's I love the movie. I tried to get my boys to sit and watch it not too long ago, and they were like, "Really, Dad? This is what you spend your time watching?" And,
you know what was interesting? I was like a normal thing that the family took the alien in their house.
Yeah.
Come on in, stay with us, strange person from another land.
Why wouldn't you?
Yeah, why wouldn't you? He's talking to the kid. Like you're not even a little suspicious. You don't think this guy might be a creep? What's
your favorite movie of sort of alien space genre movie?
Well, I like the best one is Alien, the Sigourney Weaver movie. I think
the first one.
Yeah, that's most likely what alien life is going to be like. Some horrific parasitic fucking creature that eats everything it finds.
Yeah.
That to me seems likely.
Yeah.
That seems more likely.
I remember sitting in the theater when that movie came out, watching it, and when it popped out of that guy's chest, he was, I mean, the entire theater jumped.
Yeah.
Right? It was just crazy. But
people, it's hard because you watch that movie today and you're watching it having seen all the other movies that it's affected and all the other science fiction genre movies and special effects movies, but that movie was special.
Yeah.
In 1979, when that movie came out, that was a special movie. That was a fucking horrifically scary movie, and it was realistic. Like, there was no cut the shit scenes. Everything seemed legitimate. The creature was completely unique.
Weaver was hot.
Hot as fuck.
Yeah.
Woo.
I mean... Honestly, we're looking at pictures of Liz Hurley. We should be looking at Sigourney Weaver.
And that's a great movie where a woman is the hero, and you're not flinching. There's no part where you're going, what is she doing? She's kicking everybody's ass. Get the fuck out of here. That's a movie where like that's a real hero.
Yeah.
That's a real hero who rises to the occasion in this horrific situation where this ship has been overtaken by an alien. I think that there's things out there. I don't know if I believe. I want to believe that we've been visited, but I don't know if I believe.
I think there's things out there. Yeah, I'm on board with what the second part of that as well.
Yeah.
I don't know. I find it hard to believe it would be such a secret, but and also knowing the U.S. government. Look, I mean, it's harder to find out from the network when they're going to start this show than it is getting secrets out of Washington, D.C., right? So I'm thinking we would have known for now if it had happened, but I do believe there's other shit out there, right? I can't believe we're it.
No, I don't think we're it. But
maybe we're being hopeful. I can't believe we're it. I mean, but
But I'm also fascinated to think that if they did know that that something was here, that they would visit it occasionally. Drop in on it occasionally for a scientific expedition, just see what the fuck we're up to.
Yeah, unless they just got so disgusted the last time, they just thought, that's it, I'm done.
I don't think so. We don't get disgusted. We don't get disgusted when we go visit baboons. When we study baboons, scientists return. Robert Sapolsky, he spent many years going back and forth to Africa studying baboons. And baboons are boring as fuck compared to people. if you weren't a person, if you were from some enlightened race, a million years advanced from us, you would be so fascinated to come by and look at people.
Yeah, although they probably look at us like we're a bunch of shit-flinging monkeys, so I think you're probably right. Yeah.
I mean, if we had a time machine, tell me it wouldn't be amazing if there was a time machine, but it could only go back 500,000 years ago to the beginning of man. Like the early, whatever ancient hominid that was alive back then. God damn, that would be fascinating to be a fly on the wall and watch these primitive humanoids try to figure out fire and try to figure out hunting and become what we are today.
Yeah. Oh, there would probably be moments, right?
Yeah.
I wouldn't want to sit and watch the whole thing because I think that would be, boring as shit. I mean, come on, just get on with it. Chip that rock into a circle, do something with it. Come on, but I think that You're right. I mean, if there's higher life forms out there, and you'd have to assume they are higher life forms if they're traveling, these distances. And we, again, looking at the issues of propulsion systems for hypersonic flight, et cetera. Would they look at this bunch of folks down here and think, just not interested? I don't know.
I think at a certain point in time, it would be unnecessary to physically visit. I feel like maybe
they're watching us through the Samsung TVs.
Yeah.
See, it all comes. That's the thing about it. It all comes back around full circle.
Yeah. I got super high once. I think it was in the tank. And when I came out, I had this idea that alien life, if it wanted to communicate with us, would come up with a way, like a type of language that everyone could understand. Like a language that got right into your brain. A language that instead of you having to interpret what the sounds mean and turn them into words, it's some new kind of technology that as they're making this sound, as they're putting out the signal, it's going straight into you. And you automatically understand it.
Yeah.
Without knowing what they're saying, without having actual, Bob said you guys should come to the spaceship. Instead of seeing, what it means without hearing sound. Like you'll have to disassociate the idea of these sounds meaning these words. You'll just know what it means.
Yeah.
Oh, that movie.
Yeah.
Oh, that movie
Arrival.
was crazy.
Well, didn't they do it like visually?
Yeah, but
Yeah.
it was like time doesn't matter.
Right.
There's no sentence. It was all memes and like.
Right.
That
And it was like they would spray black ink into the sky, right? What did they
Right.
do for Let me see what it looked like again. Yeah, there it goes. They spray black ink and it makes like weird patterns, and that's how they would communicate.
Have you
But
seen
that makes sense.
Yeah. Have you seen the trailer for Tenet? Is that what it's called? It
I've been
looks so
excited
crazy.
for that movie to come out for a while.
Yes.
So mad the lockdown fucked it up.
I think there's a guy named Ray Kurzweil, and he's this brilliant guy who wants to live to be 1,000 years old, and he's got this series of patents that he's come up with. I mean, he's really like a legitimately genius guy, and I got a chance to interview him once a way back. But one of the things that we talked about was he was talking about downloading consciousness into a computer. And they think that there's going to come a point in time where you will be eternal because you're going to figure out a way to take whoever Alan Mikovsky is and put it in a computer and download it. And your material body, your physical body, your biological body won't mean anything anymore. You're going to exist as you inside this computer, inside this thing. I've always thought that that's probably what alien life is. What alien life is something that has gotten to the point where it doesn't need a physical form anymore. Like whatever consciousness is, they figured out a way to contain it in non-biological systems. So they take whatever you are when you're born, but then the thing is like, how does that thing replicate? What are they doing to make it? What are they doing? What are they doing to make sure the power stays on? Like, what are they doing? I think
Keto.
probably squats. I think life could be all kinds of shapes. I think life could be, like there was some speculations these scientists were trying to figure out whether or not light could be a life form. Like there could be forms of life that are made entirely of light.
Well, everything's energy, right?
I don't know if everything's energy.
I don't know. I thought
I've
I'd
seen a
throw
lot of
that out
people
and
that
it
are
would make sense.
Just really lazy.
But like we're made of energy, you know?
Yeah, we're made of energy. But what we think of as life, we think of as like a frog.
Yeah.
Or like an Alan Mikovsky
Something
or
with
Jamie
a
Vernon.
pulse.
Yeah, but it's possible that life might be like I've thought about ideas. Like when you have an idea and then that idea gets in your head, like, man, I like that idea. And then you start working to fulfill that idea. You build a thing. Like maybe you have an idea like how to build a thing. And then you build a thing. Like that's a thing that like forced you to make it. It's like you had an idea that jumped into your brain. And then it's like, listen, bitch, you need to make a canoe. A canoe.
Yeah.
How would I make a canoe? You take a log, you fucking hollow out the center, you roll around inside of it. Just go down the river. And then all of a sudden, this idea that pops into your head, and you start doing all the work. Now you have a physical thing that literally allowed itself to be born by getting this idea that invades your consciousness and tricks you into making things.
Doesn't that make you think that everything's already kind of decided? Like, you know, you have free will and control, but to some extent everything's kind of already, what's going to happen is going to happen.
That's not necessarily true. I think you do have free will, but I think you also have determinism. I think this is something that people have argued successfully, where you really have to take a step back and go, okay, what do I think about a person's who a person is right now. Like if I meet a person and I meet this woman and she's all fucked up and she lies a lot and she likes to do drugs and she doesn't know what she's doing with her life and she cries. Like, oh, get your shit together, bitch. Is that what you think? Like, what do you think when you meet a person like that? Do you take into consideration, like, oh, this is a person who is the granddaughter of alcoholics, and it all boiled down to genetics and terrible. So all of her systems that came online when she was 2 and 5 and 6, they all came online during alcoholic households. And people were physically abusive, and you're hiding in the corner of your bedroom, and it was all chaos and
How do you know my life
drinking
story?
when you're 12. Like, when you get to that 35-year-old person and they've gone through this insane pattern without any intervention, nothing switches, how much of their life are they really responsible for? Yeah. It's a real question. It's like, who are you? You are the combination of all the things that have ever happened to you, your genetics, all the weird shit that you inherit from your parents. Like you inherit a lot of ideas, they think, even from your parents. Not just like learn from them, but actually inherit these ideas. And then you do the best with what you got.
Yeah.
And some people's got is fucking terrible.
Yeah. Do you think we're living in a simulation?
I'm too dumb.
Same.
To take that into consideration. But I think it seems legitimately weird. It seems like it changes too much. Like reality itself changes too much.
Yeah.
And things come up that seem like if there was going to be a simulation, this is how it would go down. Like I remember when I first started reading about simulation theory, it was right around the time where Anthony Weiner got busted for sending pictures of his dick. I'm like, what are the odds?
Yeah.
Like that seems like
it's so on the nose.
It seems like somebody would
so
really.
On the wiener.
If your name was Weiner, you'd avoid showing people your hog.
Yeah.
I'm like, this is
You'd
a terrible.
castrate yourself. No more wiener.
But if we're going to come up with one someday, obviously not you and me, but someone really smart is going to come up with a simulation, it's going to eventually get good enough where you can't tell that you're in a simulation.
That's what's fucked up.
That's what's fucked up. What's fucked up is if it isn't here, it's coming.
Yeah.
This took me a long time. Like I had a conversation with this guy, Nick Bostrom, who's a brilliant guy who is a big proponent of this concept. And he was explaining it through like probability theory. And I was a little too dumb to understand what he was saying, but basically what he's saying is
that's how I feel listening to your podcast.
If it's possible that someday someone, essentially, I'm paraphrasing, someday we'll have a simulation. Like what are the odds that this is a simulation? It's more likely that this is a simulation than not.
Yeah. You just got to pray that whoever's doing the simulation is looking out for you.
The other possibility is that we know the simulation's coming. That's the other possibility, and that's why everybody's freaked out. Everybody's freaked out because even though it's not here, it's inevitable. If you follow the pattern of innovation, if you go from pioneers to people who live in cities to cell phones and internet and fucking Space Force, and you just keep going, eventually you get to a point where someone figures out how to make an artificial version of life, whether it's Ray Kurzweil's thing, where it downloads you into a computer, or whether it's a thing you sit and connect to.
Yeah.
Someone's going to come up with something.
Do you think we'd know that we were in the simulation when it happens,
then
or it would
suck.
just like ease
then it would
into
suck.
it?
You don't want that.
Yeah, no.
You want something where it's crazy.
Yeah.
And you don't even know you're in it. Like, oh my God, am I in the simulation?
Who knows?
That's the best simulation. The best simulation is you have no idea. You're locked completely into it. So that's where our problem lies. We don't know if that's actually going on right now. Like for Trump, if somebody brought Trump aside, like sat Trump aside and said, Mr. Trump, all of this seems highly unlikely, doesn't it? Well, here's why.
Yeah.
You are in a simulation. This simulation was started 78 years ago, and this is the pattern. It plays out. You're given a large amount of money to start your own businesses.
Yeah.
You're going to put your name on everything. You're going to be the best, the best, but you have crazy hair. Yeah. But that's okay. You just fucking spray it down. You're good. You have a few flaws in your life. People are mad at you, though, but you're going to be the best. You're going to have the best things, the biggest. You're going to have the business. Everything's going to be amazing. And then you come up to him and like you wake him up and you say, listen, this seems crazy. It seems crazy because it is. And you settled upon a very bizarre pattern in your simulation, and this is how it came out. And everyone else is mad at you, but they just don't understand. This wasn't your fault. You didn't mean to. But But then you think of all the things that we counted before, like poverty, abuse, drug addict parents, all the different things that make a person who they are, right? Those are really kind of like factors in if you had a game. Like if you were playing some sort of a large-scale role-playing game, you're like, what is my character going to be like? Oh, your character's a barbarian. You're in the Matrix. That's what you're showing me.
Yeah, it's like you're describing like when Morpheus talks to Neo. He's like, "Hey, what do you think?"
But it is
the red pill or the blue pill.
Yeah, it is like that,
Yeah.
and it is essentially what it will be. If we're staying in this human form, essentially someone's going to figure out a way to put a helmet on you, or put a fucking spike in the back of your head that like locks your central nervous system into this gigantic computer that starts sending signals to your brain and tricks your brain into thinking it's riding on a horse through the fucking the Saudi Arabian desert. That's going to come.
Yeah.
It's just whether or not it's here yet. Mm-hmm. It's going to come. They're going to keep making things. If we don't blow each other up, there's going to be a cell phone that lets you see God. You're gonna like call God, and God's gonna be in front of you, hugging you, giving you love.
Isn't that what psychedelics are kind of like?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that could be what we're trying to recreate. What we're trying to get to could be like a state that's similar to what exists already in nature. Like maybe they're interconnected in some sort of a way. Like maybe someone will figure out. Maybe someone who is anti-drug will figure out a way to recreate psychedelic experiences using only technology that interfaces with your brain and turns on those. So, what do you remember from that moment on?
When I regained consciousness, it wasn't real quick. It wasn't real woken right up. It was real slow. It was dim. My consciousness was kind of like in and out for a while. I didn't know where I was. The pain and the feeling that I was mortally wounded, something was so wrong inside. I felt like I was dying. And this is what really fueled the panic when I finally laid eyes on these creatures. Of course, all of the mental programming that we get from Hollywood that aliens are invading monsters, didn't help. But I instantly associated this feeling of dying with pain with them. So I was combative immediately.
Where were you?
I was lying on my back on a raised table. There was a light above me. It was not real bright. It was not so bright that I couldn't see the outline of the fixture, but
what did the fixture look like?
Kind of like that, only much larger. Just a soft glow, and in the movie, there's a little bit of striking on the part of the aliens against me. That didn't happen. I lashed out at them. The one closest to me, I felt really weak. I didn't have enough strength to do much. So when my arm contacted him, he just fell back very unexpectedly easy into the other one. And I rolled off the table in the other direction. And they came around the table, and the three of them were coming towards me. And I just grabbed something from behind me, an object off of the shelf there, and started swinging it at them.
What was the object?
It was just some large, long cylinder or rod, glass, some clear material. I wasn't studying it. I was looking at them and swinging wildly, screaming threats. They stopped. And I was planning on attacking more fully, just making way past them. The only doorway I could see was on the other side of them.
And it looked like a doorway?
Yeah, it looked like a doorway, just,
And what did they look like?
I guess it's a pretty typical description nowadays. Very large eyes, hairless, two eyes nose, mouth. I didn't see them speak or no change in the expressions. And to me, that in the face of all the screaming and the fear that I was projecting, their lack of reaction probably just added to my panic. But
did they feel like they were a living creature, or did they feel like they were a robot?
Well, they were without expression, I'll say that. But, I've had 45 years to think about that. In more recent years, I think, well, maybe if they're telepathic and it's developed enough to where they don't need to talk, they also don't need facial expression.
Right.
And so their ability to communicate with each other would be much richer and more complete than we have. And speech and frowns or smiles or whatever would become obsolete pretty quick.
Yeah. Well, that is a theory about where human beings are headed. If we continue to evolve, that we will one day reach this point where the biological limitations of our monkey bodies will slowly start to fade away, and we'll have different abilities. Different abilities to communicate.
Why would we need to frown or smile if you can save much more?
And also, their musculature, did they look like smooth, like they had no clear muscles?
Yeah, they were pretty smooth, very light. When I hit the one, it fell back into the other one pretty easily, like he weighed hardly anything.
Like a little kid?
Yeah. That was the most terrifying experience of my life. But when I tell this story and try to relate to people, I'm trying to communicate what I experienced and how utterly, utterly traumatic that was, and how it was so devastating. I was, on the verge of catatonic for weeks after it happened. But I don't want to relate this story in order to inspire fear, because I've had enough time to think about it that I think that it was unwarranted, that my reaction was just due to my ignorance of the situation. The fact that I was returned at all is pretty significant,
Yeah.
The idea that these beings are just kidnapping people willy-nilly and doing terrible things to them, I don't subscribe to that theory. Now, I try to separate what I actually experienced from things that I've concluded just from thinking about it. But it seems to me that, they've been seen, observed. There have been sightings for all, before I was born.
Had you heard of the Betty and Barney Hill story before you were abducted?
I probably had. But I thought if they had some sort of sinister intentions, it'd be a done deal. They wouldn't be sneaking around, hiding, and
Right.
I believe with that level of technology. Look at it this way: human beings, just virtually everything technological that we have is just a few hundred years old. Before that, the most technological thing we had was fire, and in just the last 50 years, the progress of our science has grown to far overshadow everything we had accomplished in thousands of years before that. So I'm thinking what astronomers tell us about these other star systems is that they could be hundreds of thousands, millions, or maybe billions of years older than us. So if we accomplished the kind of technology that we have in a few decades, what is possible with millions of years of development? We couldn't begin to recognize what they're capable of.
Right.
So I think it's presumptuous for people to say, oh, they could never do that.
It really is an interesting conundrum, because we know what we can do and we know where we came from. We have a very clear history of technology when it comes to humans. And we also know that there are planets surrounding stars all throughout our galaxy and all throughout the universe. But we're still skeptical. It's so funny. And
Yeah,
so
it is.
But for a guy like you who's actually encountered it, even though you saw it, it had to not seem real.
Oh, yeah, you're questioning your sanity for sure. I mean, it was like I was practically catatonic for days afterwards.
When you think of human evolution, do you ever stop to think, what are we going to be like a million years from now if we do survive? What have you ever done this sort of thought experiment where you say, okay, if things keep going the same way, we used to be very strong and very hairy, and we're getting progressively softer as we don't need to use our bodies as much. Our brains are getting larger, our heads are getting bigger. Do you do that sort of thought experiment to see what we're going to become? And
not in a systematic scientific way, because the process is so fraught with incredible detail that I think it's hard for anybody, even experts in evolutionary biology, to really tell us anything that will hold water, that's really predictive. But on a general level, yeah. I mean, because people often wonder, why is it that we haven't been visited by aliens, right? This is a thing that comes up whenever you're talking about other life inside the universe.
I was going to get to that in a minute with you.
But the answer to that could be quite straightforward. Nobody out there cares about us because we're so ill-developed. We're so young on the cosmic scene that there's nothing interesting for them to find here on planet Earth. So to me, there's a natural explanation for why there can be other life out there, and yet they don't hang out around planet Earth, just the way we don't hang around an anthill to try to have a conversation with, what's going on inside that particular structure.
I buy that argument the least.
You do? Really?
Yeah,
okay.
Because we're interested in butterflies. Butterflies are so boring. We're interested in moles. We're interested in squirrels.
We're interested in them for very specific reasons, right? So typically we're interested either because we want to see the evolutionary development that yields this particular life form, or because there's a general curiosity about how this object is put together. If these other beings are so far beyond us that those kinds of taxonomy questions are no longer of any interest, then hanging around here may not hold anything for them to make the journey and stick around long enough for us to notice.
I don't buy that, again, for two reasons. Okay. One, because why would we assume that they're so far beyond us that they wouldn't be interested in these talking monkeys with thermonuclear weapons who dominate an entire planet?
Yeah.
That would be fascinating. If we found some planet somewhere where people are, the politicians all lie to themselves, everyone gets video through the sky, they fly in metal tubes that hurl over the oceans.
Right.
They pollute the oceans and eat all the fish. Like, these people are fucking crazy.
Yeah.
We've got to go there and check this out.
But imagine that this civilization, the notion of lording over a planet is like us talking about, the ant lording over a grain of sand. So they may be galactic as opposed to planetary in their hegemony. Mm-hmm. And the notion of some little tiny rock orbiting some nondescript star in the suburbs of this completely ordinary galaxy off there on the side may not have the kind of pull that you imagine that it does.
Oh, I disagree. We think it's interesting when we see a chimp use a rock to open up a nut. We think it's interesting that, there's an amazing photograph of an orangutan that's spearfishing. Have you ever seen it?
I have seen that, actually.
It's really cool.
Right. No, it is.
He learned it from people, apparently, but it's still interesting nonetheless.
Right, but I don't think 100 years from now we're going to be as interested in these kind of qualities, or 1,000 years from now, or 10,000 years from now.
Well, why would we assume that these things that come here from another planet are more than 10,000 years
Well,
advanced?
that's a very good question. And I think the answer to that is we look at the history of the cosmos until today, and let's just call it our universe to be concrete, 13.8 billion years. And we look at life on planet Earth, and it's, a handful of billions of years old. So in a handful of billions of years, you can go from some complex molecules to human beings.
I like how you say it like it's not that long.
It's not that long because, imagine that life began a few billion years earlier in some other system, stars and galaxies, they were starting up, a billion years after the Big Bang. So it could be that life in other worlds has a head start on us by a few billion years. And we know what can happen in a few billion years. It can take us from single cell to us.
Sure.
And you can imagine from a few billion years from now into the future, it could be radically different. So to say it's 10,000 years ahead of us, that to me would be the unexplained coincidence. How unlikely that they started and we started within 10,000 years in the span of billions of years. That seems unlikely to me.
Does it seem unlikely when you're talking about the infinite size of the universe, and there's perhaps an infinite number of Brian Greens out there talking to an infinite numbers of me?
Good point. So you're absolutely right. We're almost guaranteed, if the spatial expanse of the universe is infinitely large, that there are going to be places where it's within 10,000 years of us. But those are going to be a very small number compared to the places where it's not 10,000 years.
Is that true, or would it be an infinite number of them?
Well, it'd
not
be
a
infinite,
small number at all.
But they're different kinds of infinities.
So you mean in the space of the exact scope of the universe itself, a small number, relatively speaking, to where we are physically?
So I would say it slightly differently. I'd say look at a finite-sized ball in this large spatial expanse. So everything is finite now.
So let's get a 5 billion light year ball.
Right. Okay. And within that ball, the number that are differing from us by 10,000 years will be very, very small compared to the number differing from us by, say, a billion years or a couple of billion years. So then, simply by the law of numbers, if we imagine that they're random processes that are generated. Now, there could be some physical principle that prevents life from emerging before, say, 4 billion years ago. And if that's the case, and we're not aware of that principle, then you'd be absolutely right, that we'd all be roughly at the same starting point, and there's no reason to suspect that they would be so far ahead of us. But I don't know of any such principle.
But you almost have a reductionist view of this, right? Like so if you had a guess, if you had $100 to bet, has alien life ever observed us? You would say no.
Well, by observed, you mean could they just turn a big telescope in our direction and gather some radio waves, but yes, I would take that bet, because frankly, we've only been generating radio waves for the last, 70 years. So it's only a 70 light year ball around us. And within that small radius, very unlikely that there's been some alien world that's examining us.
So it would have to be something that would be able to recognize our signal and visit us.
Right.
But don't we look at observable planets and solar systems and discover Goldilocks planets?
We do.
And we examine those planets from vast distances away.
Yes.
And wouldn't you assume that a life form that is perhaps thousands of years more advanced than us, with the exponential increase in technology, I mean, if they ever got to the point where we are, that they would see these Goldilocks planets as well and recognize that Earth is one of them?
Yes. However, if they are so far away, they're going to be examining Earth as it was hundreds of thousands or millions or billions of years ago.
Right.
So if you truly want them to be examining us in the sense of human presence on planet Earth, then it's a much more difficult proposition to imagine that they've actually been doing that.
Is it possible there's another way to examine things where you're not hampered by the speed of light?
Not that I know of. I mean, any signal in the world that we're aware of is restricted by special theory by the speed of travel, which is now look. There's quantum entanglement, which is a strange property of the quantum world, in which distant objects can behave as if they are one.
Yes.
And in some sense respond instantaneously to an influence in one location at a distant location, no matter how far apart they are. But that isn't really observing. That's more realizing correlations between physical properties at widely separated locations. But I'm not aware of a means of leveraging that to actually observe what's happening in some distant location, even if you do have quantum entangled particles.
So much like we have different shaped aircrafts and fighter jets and cars, they probably have different shapes of these objects that operate under similar principles.
Right,
perhaps.
But they all have the same power source.
They all have the same power source. And we're also dealing with, if you think about the laws of technological progression, you think of Moore's law and you think of how things accelerate, you've got to think that if this civilization is who knows how many years more advanced than we are, if not even years. I mean, we're thinking about it in terms of conventional terms, right? The way we look at the world. I mean, they might be just superior in terms of their intellect. They've got to be. Maybe. We don't know, right?
Well, the only reason I say that is because, look, everyone doesn't necessarily start at a steam engine and go to an internal combustion engine and then, electric power, nuclear power, and go up the ladder that we come on. the binary, if the stuff is true about the origin and the binary star system, and they have heavier elements that we don't have, and this stable element 115 is a naturally occurring material, maybe that's the first thing they started experimenting with. And the version of their steam engine, their first product, was something that operated like this. And actually, when they came to Earth to look around, or whatever, they were amazed at the stuff we were doing. These guys burned stuff and squirted out the back to go forward. So,
right.
Who says they follow any kind of normal progression like that?
My thought was, if you went back to the 1400s and then you went from 1400 to 1500, you're not going to see that much of a difference technologically.
Right.
If you go from 2000 to 3000, I assume there's going to be a radical change.
Right. Well, the delta, the rate of change is magnificently higher than it used to be.
Right. So if you think about what they had in 1988 and you think about what they probably have in 2019, just logically, it seems like they would advance.
I would think so.
The only question is, like, are they living? Is that a living thing in terms of like a biological thing, or are they some sort of an artificially created creation like we are working on right now? I mean, we're in the middle of working on artificial reality, artificial beings, sentient beings, artificial intelligence. There's silicon-based life forms that they're essentially trying to create. Boston Dynamics, or was it Boston Dynamics at the company that's making those crazy robots? Yeah.
You can make machines out of flesh, right? So a cyborg or a cybernetic organism is just that, that's what a lot of people think those like gray things are, that people call the grays.
Yeah.
Is like, they're machines printed from flesh. So what you're saying is like, not
they
so
could just
far
be
off
synthetic life. They don't even need to be, machines.
Right.
Well, they seem to have no sex organs. The way they're described by people that have had interactions with them, assuming these people aren't liars or crazy or whatever.
Right.
That they have no sex organs and that they don't seem to have any muscle. They're just almost like a frame.
Right.
And they have enormous heads. I mean, if you look at Australopithecus or depictions of ancient hominids, and then you go to human beings, one of the things you see is bigger heads and weaker bodies.
Well, you see a clear progression of evolution too, where for something like that, I would lean towards a synthetic organism because it looks like it was made for a specific task. There's no reproductive organs, so I mean that almost kind of leaves out any kind of physical evolution.
Right. Well, that's also our bottleneck, right? Our bottleneck is our biological imperative. The need to breed, emotions, fear, anxiety, all these different things that exist in order to force us into making sure we reproduce. I mean, that's essentially what it is. There are human reward systems that aren't necessary once they can figure out a way to make some sort of sentient artificial life. Some sort of thing that doesn't have these biological limitations that we have.
By the way, these craft, all these different kinds have been reported because it was confusing. I always thought of flying saucers what I heard Bob Lazar talk about, flying saucer, right? But if you look back in history, people have always reported the weirdest shapes. Like, none of them are alike. There are the saucers, but you got cigar-shaped, you got the top hat shaped, you have orbs. Why? Maybe they're serving different purposes. They're doing different things, like we'd use different tools. And I want to be clear, the reason I know that memo is real is because I spent a lot of time with Dr. Edgar Mitchell, sixth man to walk on the moon. Last guy to film him before he died, right? That's how I know. I don't want any journalists thinking I got it from anywhere else. I know because of Dr. Mitchell, and he said the same thing. Maybe these things are performing different tasks, And that's why
they seem, if you think about what an alien is in terms of the sort of iconic image of an alien, like the Steven Spielberg Close Encounters of the Third Kind alien, they seem like what we'd assume a human being would eventually become.
Right.
And if these things are tiny, human beings are smaller than they've ever been before. They're weaker than they've ever been before. And there seems to be a trend in that direction. And this trend seems to be amplified by our technological progression. There are a lack of need for muscle strength and our lack of need for violence. And we're moving in a society to try to get away from all the things that we think are abhorrent about human beings and the terrible behaviors that we have. If we one day do give birth to some sort of an artificial being, like Marshall McLuhan's quote, "We are the sex organs of the machine world." That one day we...
Okay, I'll buy that.
Yeah, McLuhan was brilliant. And that quote has always been one of my favorites because, okay, what are we doing when we're constantly technologically innovating? We're constantly looking for faster cars, better computers, bigger screens, faster, more resolution, more pixels, more this, more that, higher bandwidth, 5G, 10G.
Right.
What are we doing? We're moving into this, if you just follow it, objectively stand back, don't attach yourself or your civilization, your culture to it, and look at what it is. We're moving 100% towards technological innovation. If you looked at this species from afar, and if you weren't a part of it, you would say, well, what does this species do? Oh, they make things. They make things better every year. Beehives are the same fucking thing that you see 10 years ago. You go by, you see a beehive, it's amazing, it's cool, but they're the same fucking thing. They figured out how to do it, they make a beehive.
Right.
We don't do that. We make better things.
What would you
constantly.
And at some point, I think that technology is going to fuse with us.
Yes.
And we're going to become...
It's already happening.
Yeah.
I mean, Elon Musk talked about it on my podcast, that we are cyborgs. You just carry it in your pocket. It's a phone. It answers any question you want. You can talk to it. It'll give you the answers instantaneously. It navigates you. It has all your phone numbers in it. It has all your contacts. You can get a hold of people. People are listening to you through it. It's connecting us in ways even involuntarily.
Haptics, that kind of thing.
Yeah. It's also getting on your wrist. How many people have iWatches, Apple Watches? They put them on their wrist.
Right, and that's only because we can't integrate them yet. But you know that point is coming.
100%. Yeah, I didn't joke about it last night, but I have a bit about it that I do, about the integration between humans and technology. That's
What would you do if you were a hyper-intelligence, right? Would you do the work yourself, or would you create some cool things called like humans to do it for you? Would you create things that are cybernetic organisms to come in with machines and do it for you? If you were a hyper-intelligence that has kind of changed like you've described, you'd probably create workers, right?
Well, that's a vast conspiracy theory.
I'm not talking about conspiracy.
But it is a kind of a conspiracy,
I'm
right?
asking you.
Well, I mean, I don't think it's necessarily that. I mean, you could look at it that way, but that is the way a conspiracy theorist would look at it. The way I would look at it is like there's obviously a progression going on, a biological progression. There's some sort of an integration with technology. There's some sort of imperative, this need for technological innovation. It's inescapable. Everyone has it. And I think it's attached to materialism in some sort of a strange way because so many people work so hard to get new things. And like, God, that seems so illogical and preposterous, and it makes people unhappy, and depression's on the rise, but nobody seems to be able to stop it. Like, why is that? Well, maybe it's because we are the electronic caterpillars that give birth to the butterfly. Maybe that's what we're doing.
That
Maybe
could very well be.
What our job is to do is to make some sort of a cocoon, and we don't even know we're doing it while we're doing it. Do you think a caterpillar is aware? Like, hey, caterpillar, what are you doing? Man, I'm doing my thing. It's my job. I have to make a cocoon. Then I'm going to become like a butterfly.
This could be a natural part of evolution.
It could be.
That we're just supposed to do this.
Exactly.
And make the jump to some sort of mechanized...
Right.
Yeah, non-biological.
Have you ever seen an orangutan that is fishing with a spear?
No.
They've figured out how to fish with spears. There's primatologists.
Wait, without somebody showing them how to fish?
No, they've imitated human beings doing it, and now they do it, but they do it independently. They're not trained orangutans. They're wild orangutans. Look at that. There's a wild orangutan.
Okay, that's impressive. That's impressive.
Well, there's these primatologists. I guess you would call them primatologists. That's the term.
That's a great
biologists. Biologists that believe that monkeys and chimps and some of the great apes are moving into the Stone Age, that they've currently entered the Stone Age. Like, they're not staying what they were 100,000 years ago or 500,000 years ago, but they're actively using tools, and they're experimenting with different ways to use those tools. And then they're making tools out of stone. They're making tools out of sticks, and they're using them. Well, this might just be what happens. This might just be what happens. I mean, why else? Why the fuck do we work so hard? I mean, I was driving to LA this morning. I had a doctor's appointment, so I was on the 405 at 8 in the morning. Like, Jesus Christ! Like, this is so crazy. When you're on the 405 in LA at 8 o'clock in the morning, you see literally a million cars.
Yeah, red light.
And it's just everywhere you go, it's people. And also, I'm in a Tesla, so I have it on autopilot. So I'm there sitting, I'm listening to a podcast. I barely have my hand on the wheel. I'm not touching shit. This car's driving me along. I'm not even doing anything. I'm just hanging out. It's so much less stress, by the way, to do it that way.
Right.
So it encourages you to innovate.
Yeah.
It encourages you to embrace this new technology. I got this giant screen. It's showing me the navigation in front of me. Oh, I'll be there 5 minutes early. Excellent. And I'm listening to a podcast wirelessly. It's Bluetooth streaming from my phone, and I pulled that podcast, which came out today out of the fucking sky, and I'm listening to it, and I'm all comfortable in my nice little car, just driving on my way to the doctor's office.
This is irresistible stuff.
Yeah. It's different than your Walkman.
Yeah,
you know, back in the day.
It is irresistible. It is irresistible.
It's frighteningly irresistible.
But is
what
it frightening? I mean, if you were a monkey, right? If you were an Australopithecus, would you go, man, I don't want to fucking be a person and live in a house? That's bullshit. I like just swinging around on trees. I like running from jaguars. This is life. Guys, life is running from crocodiles. It's not living in a fucking suburban community.
There's probably some that are like that.
Yeah, I don't think so. I think when it comes, we're going to embrace it. We're going to embrace it the same way you embrace cell phones, the same way you embrace television. There's going to be a few holdouts. I don't even have an email address, man. Those there's a few and far between. Good luck with that, fuckface. Go move to the woods, Ted Kaczynski.
Yeah,
go live in a
I was
cabin.
just going to throw Ted Kaczynski
Oh, man.
in there.
Ted Kaczynski was right. This is something that I think about sometimes when I get really high. That Ted Kaczynski was a part of the Harvard LSD studies. This has been proven. Ted Kaczynski, they cooked his fucking brain when he was at Harvard. And then when he went over to Berkeley and became a professor, his goal was to make enough money so that he could implement this program and live in the woods and then write his manifesto and start killing people that were involved in propagating technology.
He was expunged from the Harvard logs, by the way. This is something my friend just called me about. So there's like this private library, and they used to print people's names whenever they were part of a university, and he was one of a handful of people that were expunged from it. I want to jump back to the one thing, Joe. I want to be very careful with that word conspiracy theorist. What I was saying to you was we terraform our Earth, right? We terraform, we change the environment, we do all this innovation. What is stopping us from thinking that that's not being done? I'm not saying it is. I'm saying what's stopping us from thinking that that's being done on a much bigger level, on a cosmic level.
You mean like aliens coming down doing that to humans?
No, I'm telling you that there is something here. There's a fact. There's something. There are craft. They're here. They're not ours. They're here. So the question is, what is that about? And I'm just looking at what we do with what you're describing with technology.
Well,
and
I think it's much more likely that the same way we observe chimps and we observe that they are now in the Stone Age, that they're observing us, and that they're recognizing that there is a pattern, that there's steps that happen. I mean, Carl Sagan talked about the different levels of civilization, and that that if we don't get past certain levels, we're never going to reach this.
Right.
I mean, we're
a
in
type
this,
1 civilization.
Yeah.
We're going to stay at type 0.
Well,
yeah.
we're in this warring, polluting, pillaging,
we're awesome
civilization.
Humans are awesome.
I mean, we're awesome in a lot of ways,
But in that way, we're not.
Well, yeah, we're children that have immense power that we didn't really. The other thing is you're using the immense power that other people have created, right? I mean, even when you're driving a car, you're stomping on the gas like, woo! You didn't invent the fucking engine. You didn't invent tires. There's all these things that were involved in the creation of this thing that is really outside of your grasp of understanding, but yet you have the ability to use it. Like a person with a gun, I'm just gonna bang, bang, bang people. You didn't invent a gun, so like you've without the intellect to craft and engineer and manifest these creations, you just have access to them because you have paper or you have Bitcoin or you have whatever the fuck you're using a credit card. Now you have almost no responsibility. You could just flippantly use these things, which is why we were very childlike in our actions because we haven't had to earn the responsibility. We haven't had to earn these things that we've been able to have, and you've only been able to have them because other people have innovated and spent ungodly amounts of time and effort and focus in the lab to create these things, and then they've all put them together. And then what's the reason to put them together? To profit. Well, what's the reason to profit? Well, why are you doing this? So you can buy more things. Well, what are we doing? What are we doing? We're making better things. That's what we do. That's all we do.
That's all we do is make better things.
Yeah. Why the fuck do we need oil? Why do we need oil? Why can't we just burn wood and stay home? Why can't we grow chickens and food in the backyard? Why can't we do it? Well, we fucking can. We certainly can. People do it. But we decide to make that almost impossible. Our preferred way of living is to stuff everyone into a very small area where no one grows anything other than weed. This is what LA is. LA is 20 million people with hard surfaces, as many hard surfaces as you can. Boy, if you got an acre backyard in LA, holy shit, look at all that green. This is amazing. Well, no, that's the fucking earth coming through this weird sort of creation that we've put on top of the earth. But the goal is that, like New York City, there's none of it. Right? You've got Central Park, and they just got human shit. Human stacked up. No one's growing anything. And then constant work. Everyone's up early. Go, go, go. Innovate, progress, make that money so you can buy more things. And every year, hey, Apple, where's this fucking new phone? As if your phone isn't good enough. Like your phone's taking pictures and videos, and people are calling you, and you got applications that tell you which way the wind's blowing. It's not good enough.
A blink of an eye, it's all gone, though, that, like 10,000 years and the Hoover Dam goes or whatever. Mount Rushmore disintegrates. So it's amazing because we have created that, and everything's trying to spring up through that. We keep it maintenance down, but we're a blink, man. Something hits.
But we don't think that way. Well, you think in terms of your own life, right? You think in terms of what you want and what you need right now. We are, in many ways, this combination of this weird, primitive, ape-like thing with the ability to calculate and manipulate our world and our environment that makes us wholly unique. On top of that, with existential angst and fear. So what do you do with that? We fucking water it down with antidepressants. Give these fucking people some shit that keeps them moving. Well, they're worried about the future. They're trying to figure out what reality is. You're on a goddamn convertible spaceship spinning 1,000 miles an hour, hurling through infinity. There's no meaning to this thing. Just keep making shit. Keep making stuff. And then one day, they're going to be able to hit that switch, and this life will be born out of innovation and thinking and progress and technology. And more than likely, it's probably going to be what we're seeing that these things are that you're observing.
I'm not observing them, but yeah.
Well, someone's observing.
Are you implying that they're us?
I don't think they are us, but I think they are what happens when things keep going. It's not us, just like we're not monkeys, right? I'm not a chimp.
Oh, that'd be cool. They're from here, is your idea?
No. That this is what happens all over the universe.
Yes, right. Yeah, totally.
That this is what happens. Look, here's the thing. I went to see Brian Cox's. He has this amazing live show with Robin Ince where they have these LED screens, these huge screens with this high resolution depictions of the cosmos. And one of the most mind-blowing things was he has this large-scale image of the universe, and it shows all the individual galaxies of the universe, and it just keeps moving through all these galaxies in 3 dimensions. And it's fucking incredible. But what's stunning is the relative uniformity of it, even at, you're obviously looking at an incredibly small depiction of something that's immensely large, like a galaxy of hundreds of billions of stars. You're seeing it as this little dot, but this little dot that's flying through space, surrounded by other little darts with very similarly spaced distances between them.
All through,
So I'm like, if we see uniformity in that form, in terms of like the distance between galaxies, like so many galaxies, it's so similar. They might vary slightly, and that slightly might be hundreds of millions of light years, right? But there's so much uniformity. Why would we not assume that uniformity exists pretty much everywhere, and that all these things that you're seeing that are so similar, you do see binary star systems, you do see single star systems like star, but there's also some speculation that Earth and that our solar system one time was a binary star system. When you discuss the cosmos, maybe the single most intriguing possibility to us as human beings is what other intelligent life, if any, is out there. And how interesting is that to you? Because you spend so much time studying the fundamental particles of the universe itself. How interested are you in the possibility of other intelligent life forms? Or have you just put that out into it's just so ridiculously unlikely or so far away from us that we're probably never going to make contact?
Well, you see, it's not so... There's this SETI program where they're looking at to see whether they can see signals from distant civilizations. The problem there, from my perspective, is that although they might be out there, they've got to have had a real head start on us before you would see them. Of course, they might have done so, but then I don't know. You see, actually, Vahir Gurzajan, who's my Armenian colleague, and who looked also for these ring-shaped things, and looked at them in a different way from the Polish people. But we seem to have seen something there. But we wrote a paper in which we speculated on beings from the previous eon communicating with us. And the advantage there is that you're looking at the really advanced civilizations,
really
right at the very end, you see.
Billions of years ago, that their universe disappeared and then had to come back to a Big Bang state again.
The signals could come through, yes.
And somehow or another, those signals remain.
It's conceivable. I agree it's pretty far-fetched, but, who knows what...
So eons, how many billions of years are you talking about? Like the Big Bang was 14 billion?
Yes. But you see, that's way at the beginning, in a sense, or it's 3/4 of the way through in another sense. It depends how you draw the pictures.
Right.
In the sense of interestingness, or in the conformal picture, we are already 3/4 of the way through.
So 14 billion to now, so we have how
you
many
can't
billion
count
left?
it as years, you see. The trouble is it's a cheat.
It's a cheat.
The year count is as much as you like. It depends on something else. The mass has to fade out, and how you measure time becomes problematic.
Mm-hmm.
And it's either infinity, you see, which isn't much use, or you might have a different definitions of time, which depend on what particle you're using as your clocks and things like that.
So are you essentially saying that it's entirely possible that we are the furthest in terms of our technological achievement and our understanding of the universe itself? It's possible that we're at the front of the line, though there might be some other intelligent life forms in the universe, but they might be behind us.
Well, they would have been... I'm not saying they got through, you see. Well,
Right.
maybe they have techniques for getting through, but that's a bit hard to imagine. But maybe information from them could get through, and maybe
You mean from the previous eon?
Yes.
Oh,
yes.
they might have got through, like somehow or another survived.
Yes, but it would have to be in the form of photons or something. Yeah, no, you could. It's not. I'm talking about ridiculous speculation.
Sure,
now.
but encoding information into photons.
Yes.
Wow.
It's conceivable.
Sure.
Now, I don't want to say that I see it happening or anything, but it's not out of the question that they could develop some technology which would get information, which might be them in some sense, across in the form of photons.
But you're not optimistic about current intelligent life somewhere in the universe?
Not too optimistic, just because... well, maybe it took us a long time to get going because the dinosaurs were there for a while, and somebody might have got in there earlier in their different planet, and they could have got there quite ahead of us. It's conceivable. I'm not going to rule it out. I'm just not terribly optimistic about it. No, I think it's worth doing. It's worth looking.
Yes, but it's not something that you're really curious about.
I'm expecting. It's not so much. I'd be curious certainly, but I'm not expecting it, I guess.
Is it just because of the overall lack of real evidence, and it's just not an attractive thing for you to pursue?
It's quite attractive.
It certainly would be. If it was
I've
here.
just been doing other things, and I don't know. There's enough to do in the world. I haven't really come to terms with it very hugely. So I know there's this activity, and I'd be interested to see if any kind of, if there was this thing that came past that some people speculated was sent there by a different intelligence, which came quite close in our solar system.
Oh, that was that strange-looking cigar-shaped
thing. Yes, that's right.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't see any real reason to believe it's a alien spaceship.
Was it because of the way it was traveling? That was the idea?
It was something.
Something curious about it?
Serious people did suggest it might be something sent by an alien civilization. Well, it's worth, if one could connect with it in some way. But I don't know. I guess it's too far away now.
Well, it's another thing that's so uniquely fascinating for us, the concept of another life form out there.
Oh, sure. Yes.
One day we're all going to have no hair, and they're going to look back at pictures of us. They're going to go, what the fuck were they doing?
What is that bald human
hair,
race?
Facial hair and shit.
Everyone looks
Tattoos.
the same.
Yeah.
No eyebrows, eyelashes.
I really think that's the future. I think the future is those aliens from Close Encounters. I think the reason why we have those archetypal images in our head is because we know that's where we're going.
Have you ever talked to Paul Hellyer or looked at his stuff at all?
Who's that?
He's like the Canadian alien dude.
They're all the same.
But he was part of the
Saddle up.
government, And he talks.
The
he's like
government. Well, then for sure he's telling the truth.
He specifically talks about the like different types of aliens.
Oh, well, that makes him even more legit.
Come on, Joe.
For sure, with no evidence, he definitely would tell us all about these all different kinds of aliens.
Yeah, you should look into it. You might want to have him on.
I have, unfortunately.
Have you?
And I'm
So you
not
know
saying
who I'm
there's no
talking about?
aliens. I don't know him, but I know the whole
Is it
alien
because you're an
movement.
alien?
No,
And you don't
because
want people to know?
I think there's a business in
It's
telling people that
okay.
you know
We
about the
accept you
aliens.
for who you are.
The problem is there's a business in telling people that
Here
you know
he
about
is.
the aliens.
Ex-defense minister.
Aliens would give us more tech if we'd stop wars. All right, let's play this. I want to hear this. What's that? Oh, it's not, but it's on RT.
But why is he the one dude?
He was on RT. This
why
is
they
a
just
still
talking
frame.
He's a
through him?
special dude.
Why don't they talk to other people?
But it says on RT, proof of
He's
aliens'
the one.
presence
He's like the
overwhelming.
chosen one.
No, that's just a picture of it. That's just a screenshot.
Oh, I
What, the
see.
Nintendo
But he
part?
was on, right?
Yeah.
So there's got to be a video of it, no?
There's many videos of Paul Hellyer.
And
I've
what-
watched
do,
them.
do you buy it when you listen to him talk?
It makes me question.
I'd
I
like
don't-
to hear.
I'm
his-
interested.
I like to hear his voice to see if my crazy radar goes off. Just give me a little piece.
Tell us,
Give me a
Wiseman.
little taste.
Tell us, Wiseman, what you feel.
Ended production before the end of
You got two different shit playing. Jamie's a tabber.
Well, because I know that they are.
Okay.
They've been, as a matter of fact, they've been visiting our planet for thousands of years. And one of the cases that would interest you most, if you give me 2 or 3 minutes to answer, is during the Cold War, 1961, there were about 50 UFOs in formation flying south from Russia to across Europe. And the Supreme Allied Commander was very concerned and about ready to press the panic button when they turned around and went back over the North Pole. So they decided to do an investigation.
What is that city?
And they investigated for 3 years, and they decided that with absolute certainty that 4 different species at least, had been visiting this planet for thousands of years. So that's, we have a long history of UFOs, and of course, there's been a lot more activity in the last few decades since we invented the atomic bomb, and they're very concerned about that and the fact that we might use it again. And because the whole cosmos is a unity, and it affects not just us, but other people in the cosmos, they're very much afraid that we might be stupid enough to start using atomic weapons again, and this would be very bad for us and for them as well.
So no serious scientist has ever publicly confirmed evidence of an encounter with extraterrestrials. Why would scientists not confirm the facts if they exist?
I'm afraid they must go out of their way not to find out. Because if they did, even 10% of the amount of research I've done in the last 8 years, they would be as convinced as I am. I mean, they could do it even faster. Might take them a little longer when they didn't have a military background. But there are so many wonderful books that tell these stories, and they've been authenticated. The sightings have been authenticated by more than one witness, and also by radar.
Okay. This is the same horseshit. They've been authenticated by witnesses. That doesn't mean anything. There's no real video. There's no real photographs. Nothing looks good. A lot of people were talking about it, but when you think about how many human beings there are, there's 320 million plus in America. How many of them are crazy? At least 1%. That's 3,200,000 crazy people. How many of them really believe what they're saying? At least half. So you got 100. You got a lot of fucking crazy people.
Well, this is one video. So I've watched a couple of his, and it's interesting to think about in terms of like, we're here.
It's all interesting to think about, but as soon as someone starts talking like that, he says they've been authenticated, there was more than one witness, that means nothing.
Sure.
People are full of shit. I saw something. Doesn't mean anything. You might have, you might not have. But if he's 100% all in and he hasn't had a UFO experience himself that he's talking about,
That's
well,
fair.
then he seems gullible.
Totally
because
fair.
I talked to a lot of those people. I talked to people that had implants pulled out of their body. I talked to people that were experts.
I have seen. Oh, it's gone.
What does it say? You seen one? Yeah.
He
Sure
said
he
he's seen one. Joe. Well, it's something that gives me a lot of thought. I don't know. I haven't seen one, but I'm curious to know.
But what he just said there did not impress me, because he said that multiple people had seen it, like more than one person had confirmed it. That doesn't mean anything. Like, you could have 5 guys that lie. That doesn't
Joe,
mean
have
anything.
you
They
seen
might
a
tell the
UFO?
truth. I don't think so.
Italians call them UFOs. My people.
Do they?
Yeah, UFOs. Yeah.
I've never heard that.
That's a joke.
Oh, wow. 2 in a row.
How'd I do? Harry Potter was a fail, but I came back around. It was an UFO. Are we still friends?
Yes, 100%. It's not to dismiss.
Thank God.
It's not to dismiss the possibility of UFOs. It's just that you got to really be careful with how people talk about stuff.
Sure.
You got to be, if someone starts talking that they know something and they.
Well, that's one video. I've watched a few of his videos and they were really interesting. He was speaking before Canadian Congress talking about this, and I've watched a lot of it in its entirety, and it's just worth thinking about. That's all.
But
I don't know what the truth is.
Let me play devil's advocate.
Sure, please. Yeah, always.
Just the fact that he has a lot of videos out there makes me wonder, because that means that he's making a living doing this, or this is a gig. This is a thing he does.
Not when you're speaking before the Canadian Congress.
Of course, if he does a bunch of these other interviews as well, that allows him to speak in front of, that's his thing.
Sure.
His thing is, I'm the guy who knows everything about UFOs.
Right.
But if you were talking to scientists, they would say, show us your evidence.
Right.
And
always.
There's nothing. That's the thing about these guys. They all have stories, and no one has any evidence.
Yeah. I mean, I don't have the evidence.
But it feels good to think that they're out there, right?
Fuck yeah. I want to know. I want to know stuff. I mean, like, look at all the shit that we have, and we're here, and all the things that we, all the resources that we use, and we're one planet in a universe full of other planets. That's all.
There it is, way up there.
I'm not afraid to say that I'm curious.
I think everybody is. And I think people generally, it feels like a normal thing to be like, yeah, they're fucking out there. But what I think is hard to accept
I don't have hard evidence.
What's hard to accept is that they're communicating with us, and only certain people, like Paul Hellyer, know.
Well, maybe he does know, and maybe he has seen something, but maybe he's full of shit. The problem is, if you haven't seen it, and I haven't, or at least I don't think I have, and you're talking about these things, how much time you spend thinking and talking about them, like it gets to become almost like a pathology. Like, why are you so invested in something that you don't even know is real? Mm-hmm. But it becomes a thing that people are into, like they're into baseball scores, or they're into bowling. They get into UFOs. They get into it, and then they start. I mean, this dude's obviously making a career out of it. He's out there traveling.
I don't know that. I mean, that's something to investigate upon this conversation. But it's made me think for years. Like, I've seen some Paul Hellyer videos, and I'm just like, wow, okay. And it makes me think. That's all.
Maybe.
And I will always be curious about aliens and psychics and all the shit.
I'm not
superlative in that way where it's like yes or no. I just don't know, but I want to know. I'd love to keep learning.
I would too. But I think that with guys like this, when you're talking about a subject that's this mercurial, this is such a difficult subject. I think it's very important to only talk about the actual facts, like what we know or what we don't know. If he wants to talk about his own personal experience, that's one thing. But when you start talking about stories that you heard, like, okay. People are full of shit from the beginning of time. We've been telling stupid stories about werewolves and fucking vampires.
I think that's how a lot of damage is done, too. It's like, it's all derivative passed down. Like, oh, I heard this from this and this and this, but you weren't there, so you don't know. You know? It's like, I'm reading this book about our brains and how our recollection of memories and like eyewitnesses are usually inaccurate because you don't really remember like you think you did, and your brain lies to you and tells you that you saw something a certain way.
Right.
And even that, like, I don't know.
That's very important for people to know.
Absolutely.
There's a lot of people out there that think their memories are super accurate.
Well, and this ties into being wrong. This ties into being like, I didn't see it the way that I think I did, and I might have made a mistake, and I'm sorry. You know, like, that's okay. That's important too, because I think a lot of times when you have some big statement about something that you believe in, or like, if you want to get down to having some sort of trial of this or that, and you say, I remember it just like this.
Right. And then you get dramatic and emotional and try to sell it. You're selling it like you're running for Congress.
It's
$40,000 a day.
Frightening.
You know what? I know you're big on aliens. I just don't believe it. I mean, we talked about this last time.
You don't believe it at all?
I believe there's other life forms.
You just don't believe they've been here?
I don't think they're coming here. No, there's no reason to come here. We are
Why?
offering nothing.
What are you talking about?
What are we offering, Joe?
Well,
if you're that far in it,
people travel to go study small mammals in the Congo. Do you know that?
Yes.
They spend giant chunks of their life to go look at butterflies. We found a new frog in South America, and the National Geographic Society will give them money. We're going to document this frog. People are curious, and anything that's going to be intelligent and innovative, anything that's going to invent technology, the only reason why you invent technology is because you are curious. And if you are curious, you're not going to stop being curious. You're going to continue to be curious. And if you have a fucking whole planet filled with predatory apes that have thermonuclear weapons and they want to control various patches of land that they've designated on maps with lines, and they put stupid fucking fences up, and they nuke each other, and they fucking fly planes and drop bombs out, and they have other planes that they fucking operate remotely with these little joysticks and drop bombs on people, and we kill terrorists, and some of the people that run the country are terrorists. And then you have the stock market. Like, what the fuck are these people doing? The stock market's, what is that, a bunch of numbers that are bouncing around? They're trying to speculate what's going to go this, and it's based on confidence. Oh, my God, these people are crazy. And then they have the ability to send video through the air, and it reaches their phone on the other side of the world instantaneously. Like, whoa, this is really heavy stuff. These fucking crazy monkeys down on planet Earth are weird. We should study them. Of course they would study us. We're sending rockets into space. We're invading other planets in our solar system to try to colonize.
If they're coming here, that's basic to them. All that stuff you just mentioned is so basic.
Says who? Says who? Says you?
To get here, they have to have technology we haven't even...
No, they don't. No, they have to have technology that's slightly more advanced than us. We will be able to unquestionably travel to other planets within 100 years or 200 years. Let's say 300 years.
Okay.
So that's comparing us to people that live in 1720, right? That's not that long.
Okay.
So it's like we went back in time to visit people in the 1700s. We'd be fascinated. And we'd be very interested. If we found a planet somewhere 300 years from now that had people on that planet that lived like people lived here in the 1700s, we would be blown away. We would think it's the most unique and interesting thing we've ever found ever in life.
I just don't know, with everyone having a cell phone, can take footage, why don't they have why don't multiple people have the same footage of the same thing? Like, it happens.
They do. There are some sightings, particularly the Phoenix lights that happened in the 90s that many, many people captured. Mm-hmm. They don't know exactly what they are. They don't know what but a lot of people captured these lights that are in the sky. Now, my take on the Phoenix lights and a lot of these things is usually that there's some sort of a military aircraft they're working on. Mm-hmm. But here's the thing. They don't have to visit all the time. If they only visited once or twice, these unique experiences that have happened once or twice over the course of human history, or 3 times, or 10 times, or 100 times, what are the odds that anyone's going to capture it? Especially if they're smart about it. Especially if they're smart about how they come. Especially if they have some sort of cloaking apparatus, or they have some ability to understand when they're being viewed or observed, and knowing how to hide or how to camouflage their ships. But of course they would be interested. I think that's the least plausible scenario that they wouldn't be interested in us.
The thing that was interested in me when you interviewed Snow, he's been through everything, and he found Snowden. He found no evidence.
But he hasn't been through everything. First of all, he's only one man, and he was only working there for a short amount of time.
Okay.
It's not like he's
working there. But he had access to a lot.
Yes, but it's not like he's working there for hundreds of years and deeply diving into the subject of UFOs and has access to. And not only that, like, what does he have access to? Is access to the NSA files? And everything's compartmentalized. That's one of the big problems with the military, is that the NASA does not have access to what the Navy has access to, which doesn't have access to what the Army has access to. Like, they don't always cooperate. And so for him to say that he didn't find anything about UFOs, that makes sense. Like, he probably even looked a little bit and didn't find anything about UFOs. That doesn't mean there's nothing about UFOs. It just means that he didn't find anything.
Okay.
There's a lot of information out there when you think about one person that's going to scour all the government records
I understand.
from the 1950s to present about what they've discovered and what they haven't.
So Area 51, what do you think is in there?
Nothing now.
You think
nothing now.
Okay.
I think at one point in time it is for sure one point in time what they used to work on secret military projects. Or aircrafts, and that's where the Blackbird came out of. That's where the stealth bomber came out of. There was a lot of that stuff that a lot of people mistook for UFOs. I think The real question lies in the very small percentage of unexplained sightings. So if you look at UFO sightings, you take the pie of UFO sightings, I would say there's, and not me, they say, what they're talking about that's been solved is somewhere in the neighborhood of 95% of those. 95% can be explained by swamp gas, ball lightning. Ball lightning is a phenomenon that comes when, depending upon tectonic pressure, the Earth can release this lightning out of the ground that travels in a ball-shaped pattern and zigs through the sky and then vanishes and disappears. They don't totally understand how it's being created, but they do know it requires some pressure in the earth, something about tectonic plates and possibly different atmospheric conditions, but it's a real observable phenomenon that's actually occurred on planes before. Like it's flown down the passageway of a jet at one point in time. Yeah, multiple people observed this ball lightning, and they thought they were being boarded by a fucking UFO or something. It's a weird. You've never seen it?
No.
It's a very weird phenomena. Mm-hmm. See, get a video on. We should probably wrap this up soon. It's 3 hours and 30 minutes. Get that. Get a video on ball lightning because they have observed this and filmed this. It's really fascinating. That's responsible for a lot of UFO sightings.
But you said there's that 5% that can't be explained.
Yeah. And maybe out of that 5%, 4% they just haven't figured out how to explain it. Like, wait, let me see this. See, like that is ball lightning. See that thing hovering in the sky? And sometimes they'll fly around. Sometimes not only do they hover in place, but they move around. So lightning crackles, and then this thing will hover in the sky. And then sometimes they actually come out of the ground.
This is bad comparison probably, but it's almost like an ash. When you...
This is a bad video. See if there's... I understand. But the problem is all this other people talking in it. There's different videos of ball lightning that I've watched. It's pretty interesting shit, man. Ball lightning's weird because it's see like there. It flies around and it looks like a fucking UFO. See? And then it disappears. So that's a weird one. That's a weird one that kind of looks like it would be an alien spacecraft. And then they get videos of it, and it looks like a ball flying through the sky. People are like, oh my God, it's a UFO. But it's just a very rare atmospheric occurrence.
Huh. Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think if I was an alien species 500 years more advanced than we are, I would be fucking fascinated by Earth. And that's all you need. 500 years from now, with the exponential growth of technology like we're experiencing on Earth, 500 years from now, if we don't blow ourselves up, or if they're different than us, like maybe they evolved different and they don't have the same battle for resources, so they didn't develop the kind of territorial behavior that us apes have. If they develop something more complex and a different sort of cooperative evolutionary mechanism, they could be very different than us, but still way more advanced, but interested in us.
Okay. All right. Will you ever see one in your lifetime?
I don't know, man.
I don't think so.
I haven't yet.
I don't think you will.
I got something right here. You want to see them?
No, I don't. What's in there?
Mushrooms.
Oh.
You can meet aliens. You just got to take the right dose. I'm super excited to talk to you about several subjects, but this one, thank you very much for this first edition copy of your Area 51, an uncensored history of America's top secret military base book. I'm super excited about this.
I heard through the grapevine you were a fan.
I'm a freak when it comes to this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think is going on up there?
I mean, same thing that's going on all over the place when it comes to military secrets, which is stuff that you want to know about, very few people know about, and every now and then a journalist gets a hint at it, right?
Yeah. Do you think there's any alien stuff up there?
I write in the book all about that.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Well, tell me.
Last 12 pages. You want me to...
Want me to go to the last 12 pages? What do you think?
So Area 51 was this secret test base where the CIA was running spy plane programs, right? So interestingly, my new book is about ground branch, guys on the ground. That's about air branch, what we were doing in the air. And it was this idea that we should spy on the enemy, okay? But if you go back in time, why Area 51 really started, you learn that it was a base hidden inside of a base, nuclear weapons, and it was all about beating Stalin at his black propaganda campaign, this I write in the book, to hoax Americans in a War of the Worlds type scenario. whereby little men who looked like aliens would get out of an aircraft and the government would go crazy about it. And then Stalin would say, look, not only do we have technology better than you, but we have a better propaganda department than you.
Really?
Joe, you got to read the whole book.
Oh,
I mean, this is this is a tough opening. You got me on the spot.
It is a tough opening, but it's a good spot.
Right?
It's a good spot.
Right?
So Stalin, he just hired short people? Like, what did he do?
All right, I'm going to make you save that. I'm going to make you earn
Save
that.
it?
Yeah.
How's that?
I mean, you want me to talk about that right now, right off the bat?
Why is it?
I'm sweating.
We're gonna get to surprise, kill, vanish as well. But why does it make you sweat?
Oh my God, it's such an incendiary topic. I mean, people want to believe they're aliens.
Right.
Right? Okay. I mean, I've spent 5 books dealing with the mythology of Area 51, which is phenomenal in its own way because it speaks so much to power, to morality, to information, to people's desire to know what's going on and the government's desire to keep things hidden. So this topic is always coming up because a lot of people want to believe that there were aliens in that craft. And my source, who I write about in the book, told me otherwise, that they were genetically... Let
me stop you right there, because when you say that craft, what you mean is the supposed UFO wreckage that crashed in Roswell, New Mexico in 1947. That's what you mean, right?
Yes.
But that was never supposedly taken to Area 51. It was supposed to be taken to Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. The legend has it that Truman flew there to meet them, and right?
That's one legend.
Yeah.
So in my book, I interview a man who worked for the Atomic Energy Commission who tells a different story. Tells the story of receiving that craft at Area 51 in 1951, which is why the base is called Area 51.
Oh.
And that inside the craft were humans who had been altered, surgically altered to look like aliens in a plan for Stalin to sort of twist Truman's arm, because at that time, we had the atomic bomb. When Roswell happened, we had the atomic bomb, and the Soviets did not.
Can I stop you there?
Yeah.
When you say humans that were surgically altered to look like aliens, do you mean... So this is 1951. So you're talking about 4 years after the supposed crash.
Yes.
So what
they had
was
the bodies.
left?
They kept the bodies.
They kept the bodies. In what?
And
Formaldehyde? Like what?
Yes. And also because the idea was, and remember... Or I can't say remember because you haven't read the book yet.
Right.
And I wrote this book 8 years ago. But it did really impact a lot of my thinking and working on government secrecy projects, because it makes you really consider what a hoax means and what it means to a population of people, and how the government begins to work with disinformation versus cover stories and all of that. But going back to answer your question, that is what I was told by the source.
But how reliable is this source? This is a very incendiary idea to rely upon one individual's recollection of it.
Which is why the book went through the roof in terms of people being upset about it. I mean,
were they?
Oh my God! I interviewed 79 CIA guys, Air Force guys, spy pilots, engineers. I mean,
who's mad at you?
The conspiracy theorists were mad at me because they said this woman is bananas. They were aliens.
Well, even if they weren't aliens, right? There's accounts that it was some sort of a test vehicle, and that there were actually just dummies inside there, crash test dummies that they used. There's been a bunch of different versions of it, but the most compelling version of the Area 51 alien myth to me is Bob Lazar. Did you get into that?
Yeah, he plays a huge role in Area 51. I mean, before Bob Lazar went public, no one even knew about Area 51.
People knew. It was common folklore, but there was no definitive proof that there was something going on over there, other than some weird VHS footage of things flying around in the desert that seemed to be behaving in a way that modern aircrafts are not totally capable of. At least modern piloted aircrafts are not totally capable of.
I mean, which brings me to another book I wrote called The Pentagon's Brain, which, sort of off this idea was like, wait a minute, what kind of technology is the government capable of? And we have a whole department for that reason called DARPA, which looks at weapon systems 25 years out. So the idea that you and I don't know what the military is capable of in the air, underwater, wherever it may be, is because we're not thinking 25 years out, and they are. And they're developing weapon systems, the great weapon systems of the future. That's what they call them.
Right, like how they developed the stealth bomber. And that was all out in Area 51 and Groom Lake. And
yes.
What do you think of Bob Lazar's story? Because Bob Lazar's story, there's some fascinating aspects to it. But one of the most fascinating is some of the things that he's said that people said was horseshit has been proven to be true. Like one of the things, the biometric reader that measured the length of the bones in your hand, and that they are unique as a fingerprint. And people are like, what are you talking about? And then they actually found out that this was something they really did have. And they have photos of this thing now. This is something that he talked about, and they claimed it was science fiction.
I mean, it's fascinating when someone touches upon a subject that the government does not want known about for any reason. And there is a campaign to discredit that person. And there's no doubt that happened to him. I mean, it was remarkable. And I write about him in the book because if you follow the logic that my source told me, that these were, modified human beings as part of a hoax. And the reason that I trust the source is because, Joe, he told me that he also worked on the program. So he had like a burden to unload, right? And so if you follow that logic through, then the Bob Lazar story is that when Bob Lazar said, I saw an alien, it looked like this, it was small, it had big eyes. Those were those were the surgically modified humans that the government was doing experiments on.
I think Bob Lazar's exact quote was, he walked by a window and he looked in and he saw two agents that were looking down at something that was very small and looked humanoid, but he didn't know if it was a dummy or anything, and he wasn't even supposed to be looking in there. And it was a brief, 1 second look that he has bounced around in his head back and forth. Has it ever occurred to you that maybe the guy who gave you that information did work there, but is also feeding you horseshit?
Well, the source was a major player in the Manhattan Project. He went on and worked in the Atomic Energy Commission. I mean, there's a wing of a museum named after him. His accolades, his awards were so extraordinary. It would be.
What's his name?
I've never said his name, although, I will say this.
Well, you're giving it away. You're giving away a lot of the stuff.
He recently died, and he did give me permission to tell his full story after he died. And I'm circling around that. But he was absolutely, with a Q clearance. That's what you have when you have access to nuclear secrets. So if someone has a Q clearance for decades and they're full of garbage, you really have to ask, my God, should this guy have a Q clearance? I mean, that's reverse engineering his credibility. But I think you should read the whole book because it's shocking what he says, but it does make sense if you can get through 400 pages of, the CIA's idea about information, disinformation, why we need to cover things up. That's
why I'm asking you if you think that he might have been lying to you.
I don't believe he was lying whatsoever.
Disinformation.
No, I don't believe.
So you think that the Russian government definitely did surgically alter people to make them look like aliens?
I believe.
Were there images of these things?
I believe what he told me.
Did you see photos?
No, I did not see photos. No. But here's the rub. Ready?
Okay.
When I was writing another book called Phenomena, which dealt with the CIA and the Pentagon's use of psychics, over decades. I mean, this goes back. Everything I write about pretty much goes back to post-World War.
That remote viewing stuff.
Yes, yes. And it's all about U.S. government takes pole position after World War II, and we now need to always be ahead of the curve. We must lead. We can never get beaten by the Russians. Now it's China, okay? So the psychic program had a lot of people who really believe in aliens or, other intelligence from other worlds. And when I was writing the Phenomena book, I learned a whole bunch of new information about how upset they were with my story because they believe, and they all knew the source, by the way. They knew the source, and they believed that he was fed misinformation. So these are two sides of the coin, which are super interesting, I think, if you can look at them with your own bias turned off and not have a desired outcome. I want to believe this. I don't want to believe this. You know. Right. Speaking of I want to believe, I was working on a project with Chris Carter, who is the X-Files creator. And the one person I took the source, that I wanted to meet the source was Chris Carter, and we went out there together and sat with him and met him. Really? And it was wild because the source had never even heard of the X-Files. And it was like, oh, what? I know.
How do you
They talked about baseball,
Really?
Yeah.
See, I don't have a desired outcome. I mean, I would love it if aliens were real.
Okay.
But when someone starts talking about disinformation and propaganda campaigns, but they want you to believe them.
Right.
But don't listen, I'm here telling you the truth. I'm here telling you the truth.
I'm not saying I'm telling you the truth at all. That's why I was
No,
like,
not you.
Joe, let's wait
For
till
sure not
hour
you.
3 because it's too explosive. People have such a horse in the race already.
With aliens, you think?
Well, I mean, maybe you are neutral. I don't know. I know I'm neutral.
Yeah, I will listen. I absolutely want aliens to be real. 100%.
Wouldn't it be interesting?
I'm not neutral, but I am neutral in my perceptions. And when I look at things, I go, I don't know about that.
Me too.
I want to see a picture. Like, what do these guys look like? I mean, what did they do to them? Did he describe what kind of surgical alterations?
I stayed with the source. I mean, after the book published, I would go and visit him. We'd sit in a Chinese restaurant and eat and talk, and I would try to get a droplet of information out of him.
And what was he doing?
Oh, my God.
It?
He avoided it. I mean, look, here's another thing. When the book came out, his wife of 65 years knew it was him, okay? And I went out to Las Vegas and sat there in a room with the source and his wife. And she said, tell me this isn't true. Tell me you made this all up, to her husband. And he said, it's the truth. I mean, that's a triangular version of getting at the truth. But again, to reiterate, I believe he believes what he told me was the truth. That was the truth he was told.
I think there's certain agents that think it's fun to fuck with reporters and journalists and make things up. I really do. And I think especially when they're talking about secret information that they were sworn to protect. And then all of a sudden they want to talk to someone that they don't even know. On the sneak tip, let's meet at a diner. I'm going to tell you everything.
That's not how we met.
Well, I mean,
Right.
however you met.
Yeah.
You know
well,
what I'm
we
saying?
met because I was interviewing nuclear weapons engineers who were setting off nuclear bombs in Area 51, in the Nevada test site, Area 12, Area 23. And they all said to me, you've got to talk to the top engineer of all this weaponry. And they gave me his name. And we talked for days and hours about nuclear weapons. And then, in one conversation, he began to cry and told me this story that I was like, what? What?
Why was he crying?
He was crying because he participated in our version of the human experiments. Because what the Russians do, we do. Look, I've written 5 books about this.
We altered people to make them look like aliens?
According to him, we had a small program in 1951 where we wanted to see how the Russians did what they did, how they made human beings look like this.
So what'd they do? Take prisoners or something? Like what? Who do they alter?
He said they were handicapped children.
Oh, Jesus.
And he told me that he participated in this. So again, I mean, unless you have someone that lost their mind at age 90 and was willing to tell their wife of 65 years, I lost my mind.
So he's saying that he participated in something that altered handicapped children. When you say handicapped, you mean like Down syndrome or something like that? And they made them look like aliens and then killed them? Like, what did they do with this?
This is where we get into drops of information coming out. But what I can say is he had a grandchild that was born that way. And the grandchild did not live long. The grandchild died. And it made him feel so guilty about what he had done that he felt compelled to confess, if you will. And I remember saying to him, why are you telling me this? Why don't you tell a priest? And he said, a priest would judge me and I can tell you won't.
Why wouldn't you judge them? I'd judge them.
Well, I guess that's why I'm a born journalist, Joe, because I really try not to judge people. I mean, my new book, Surprise, Kill, Vanish, it's about assassins. It's about people who work for the CIA who do what needs to be done on the ground in the name of national security. I don't judge them. This is why, what's really at issue here is morality, right?
Yeah.
I mean, can I tell you how I got the idea for this book?
Sure, but let me, before we go any further, so...
You want to talk about the aliens?
Yeah. Was he saying that there have never been any encounters with alien spacecrafts?
He was totally neutral about aliens. He had nothing to do with aliens. He could have cared less. He didn't watch the X-Files.
And what was his take on Bob Lazar?
His take on Bob Lazar was that he probably saw something that the government had an extension of the program. I mean, he didn't know. That was speculative. We didn't talk about that. I mean, other than inference. He was very limited in the information that he would get out. But, I mean, I used 79 sources in that book that all went on the record in name. And he was the one anonymous source. But like I said, he told me after he died that I could tell the whole story.
Are you going to?
I might. I might come back.
Write another book?
Well, if you give me a break and back off of this subject, I might come back and tell you and your audience
what are you saying, back off
his
the subject?
name.
This is your book. I want to promote your book. I know you want to promote your new book, but I want to promote this book as well.
I mean, I'm teasing you, right?
I know you are.
But it's like, it's an astonishing story. And I think the best line of all is that people that read about that in the very end of what we did, they go, I wish they were aliens.
So Stalin created some sort of a craft that mimicked...
You're going to read it.
Okay.
That's what you're going to do the rest of the afternoon. Nope. I'm going to come back on your show after you read it.
This is a podcast, and we're talking. I think we should probably get into this a little bit.
Okay. Come on with the questions.
Okay.
I'm used to asking the questions.
Are you? Oh, right. As a journalist, yeah. Now, Stalin and the Russians created something that mimicked a UFO, something that looked like it would be from another planet. Is that what they did?
Mothership. Mm-hmm. In those days, drones were... There was a mothership and a drone was attached to it, and it was jettisoned off. Okay? Mm-hmm. So, according...
In those days?
Well, in 1947, 48,
What do you mean by...
Well, they didn't... I mean, that was drone technology then.
Okay.
Right? So there's a mothercraft, like an aircraft, and then the drone is like a small aircraft under it, and it gets jettisoned off. And that was what the craft was. It was jettisoned off. So Stalin actually, according to the source, invaded our airspace, which was the deep embarrassment to Truman.
So he invaded our airspace and then let this drone crash land on the ground with these things that turned out to be human. Yes. They looked like aliens, but they turned out to be humans that were manipulated surgically to look like aliens.
Yes, as a way to, and remember, I mean, not remember, but where this was, very close to a nuclear weapons base, to our White Sands military base. I mean, this is like not a place you want the Russians to be able to get near,
right.
I mean, what was interesting is at Area 51, we then went out and mimicked all of those. One of our early drones was a mimicry of that. It was there was a M21, which was the mothership, and a D21, which was the daughter ship. So
how did they pilot them? Was it wirelessly like we do now?
No. Then it was like there was a pilot in the mothership, and they kind of let it go. Right, and it flew off. I mean, there's incredible stories of what the CIA was able to do out there at Area 51 with their air branch. The technology, they're always ahead of technology. That's what's remarkable.
Well, what Bob Lazar did film that was really shocking was the filming of these drones flying around and performing these really you've seen those videos, I'm sure, right?
In the 80s, it gets really crazy with what they're able to do and what they're... But, I mean, why I like looking at history is because you can see the progression, you know? You see how science evolves, bit by bit. And then there's these great breakthroughs because what the government is always looking for is called a revolution in military affairs, right? And that's certainly what drone technology did later on as drones became developed after the Vietnam War.
So in the 1980s when Bob Lazar was filming all this stuff, you think this was similar to the technology that we see publicly described today in terms of like what drones are capable of?
Sure. I mean,
so
that's
they probably had something like that back then.
They're, when the F-117 was revealed during the first Gulf War, that aircraft was being developed for 25 years out at Area 51. Actually, at Area 52 was where they had it set up to develop that stealth technology. Think about, and what was amazing, talk about keeping secrets. They had something like 10,000 people working on that. No one knew about it. That story was never broken by the press, not by anyone. It just suddenly appeared in the Gulf War and took out Saddam Hussein's, facilities. That's a revolution in military affairs. What becomes interesting is then it becomes obsolete because now everybody knows about it and everybody's going to mimic that. And now you have to have a new weapon system, and that's the military-industrial complex.
So was this drone aircraft that was released from the mothership, was this capable of autonomous flight, or was it just they just threw it out there and let it crash?
The latter, right? And remember, that information I am very limited to. That's why it's 12 pages. It's like the source gave me these little bits of information, which I felt was important to include because it speaks to the big issue. Why is Area 51 classified? I mean, now it's not. President Obama was the first president to actually say Area 51 publicly. Some people say because of my book, right? Meaning it was out. The secret was out. But before that, I went through 10,000 pages of documents from the National Archives. And every place you see, the word Area 51 was actually redacted. Right? Why would you keep that so secret? I mean, all the guys that I was interviewing say they could call it, Groom Lake. They could call it the test facility. They could call it Paradise Ranch. But they couldn't say Area 51. Why? And the source said, well, because we did this horrible program out there, and the government doesn't want anyone to know about that ever. I mean, there's stories of, like, somebody asking Bill Clinton, about Area 51, him going white. I mean, human experiments? Who wants to be part of that? It's horrible.
But the human experiments were they limited to this mimicry of the Russian experiments where they were trying to get people to look like aliens, or was there something else going on?
Well, my goodness. I mean, you read now the declassified documents tell us how many different human experiments were going on around nuclear weapons, okay? Horrible experiments where they were subjecting people to radiation because they wanted to know. They felt, well, it's more important to know what happens to people than to not know. And so they would take groups of people that, say, had cancer or something and test them. So there's no doubt that the government has experimented on humans. It's just, is that something that is wise to make public? And, there's two sides of the coin on that. I mean, you when you reveal these kind of things, when you write about them, I mean, people get really upset and, vilify the government, partially with good reason, and partially it's like bad for national security. So I think that's the justification on the part of the Defense Department to keep things secret.
That makes sense. Wow, that's an interesting take that I never thought of before. But if I was Stalin and I was trying to, air quotes, fuck with the Americans, that's maybe the way I would do it. Hey, man, you got a problem. It's aliens, they're coming. And it's hard for people that live in 2019, especially if you're young, to really imagine a world not only without the internet, but with 2 television channels, right? And radio, which was where people got all their information from. I mean, was there 2 channels? How many channels were there in 1947? Maybe 3? Maybe 3.
I mean, it was radio in World War II, right? Most people had radio.
Yeah, mostly radio and newspapers, and that's where people were getting their information. Right. And there was a mass hysteria where people were absolutely terrified that we were going to be invaded, which is why when Orson Welles' War of Worlds, which when they released it, when they did it on the air, they were very clear that this is going to be a reading of Orson Welles' War of Worlds book. Or that H.G. Wells, excuse me. War of Worlds, right? It was H.G. Wells' book, and Orson Welles read it.
Yes.
And when they were talking about this on the radio, a lot of people missed that part, right? Yes. And so as the radio went on, as the broadcast went on, and people were tuning in later in the day, it erupted in mass hysteria. People were freaking out. Hundreds of thousands of people really did think that it was, and it was also something that was recreated in other countries. I don't know if you know that. They did that in other countries in different languages when they saw how cute it worked in America. And
well, so you see, you can see the logic. I mean, at first it sounds absurd and it sounds ridiculous, and that's why I was sweating, because it's like,
I know, right.
But when you think it through, and I challenge you to read the whole book, because you start piecing together these various ideas, and disinformation becomes less vague and more specific, and you go, that's how it works. And you begin to see how people's perception and how they're easily manipulated factors into national security, just like you just described. Stalin knew about that. He was a master. He was the master of propaganda. He invented it. I mean, he didn't invent it, but he invented it in on the political stage to be used to mess with another country's perception of things. Think of what he did with brainwashing, right? Okay. So like in the 50s, and this is journalists, said, so there was a journalist who was putting out stories about brainwashing. And there was this idea, which is well taken, that totalitarian governments brainwash people. And this became a big code word. It was introduced into the American lexicon in 1950. Well, then we're in the Korean War. Our pilots start getting shot down. They're put on TV by the communists saying terrible things about America, the American pilots. And suddenly it was like, they've been brainwashed. It was very convenient to have that story. So these things work part and parcel, and you've got all kinds of smart people behind the scenes knowing this, looking at it, examining it, and using it to their advantage to stay where? In the pole position. That's the goal of the U.S. government.
So the propaganda that we did that sort of copied Stalin's, we were kind of playing catch up in that sense.
I mean, we're playing catch up, then we're ahead, then we're behind. It's always a game. You're a competitor, you know this.
But that's a crazy thing to do, to make a fake spaceship and just let it slam into the ground with a bunch of people that you cut up to look like aliens. Did he say specifically what kind of modification they made to people that made them look like aliens?
I got drips. And you'll read it in those 12 pages.
Come on with this 12 pages.
I'm telling you that because you're asking me these questions as if I spent... I mean, look, I did spend literally hundreds of hours with this source. We sat there and talked about everything, and I would try to squeeze out, just like you're trying to squeeze out of me, and that's why I'm saying read it, because I literally tell you everything that there is. I think what's most interesting about the source, and why I might come back and talk to you about it and tell you who he is on your show, is because of his backstory, right? Why he did what he did, how he wound up in the Manhattan Project.
Sounds like he was probably Jewish from Germany. No?
No.
No. Trying.
Okay.
Trying to get you.